reading our bylaws there, and the other committees, have they been meeting? If they haven't been meeting for 5, 6 months, do we need to keep them? The governance and bylaw committee, should that committee be active in our legal governance and bylaw? We had statements from Hendrickson Law on a case that continued for months and months and months, and all it was trying to get a settlement that was required, signed, so that insurance could pay our bill. We ended up paying the Hendrickson Law more to try to find a way to get a settlement than we did to deal with the case. It's silly, but there's a lack of communication with lawyers there, because we paid the same thing month after month, and nothing was done, and nobody knew what was going on. When I brought it up, it showed, it got handled, and we need something. Should that be part of the bylaws and governance committee to keep up with lawyers? I think we need a discussion.
A legal committee.
Pardon me?
We have a legal committee.
Do we have a legal committee?
We have had, but we haven't had to meet with any. Pam was a member of that, Laura was a member of that, and I was a member of that. And we met with the lawyers, and kept it working how it was supposed to be run. So, and everything was reported back during the meetings that went on. Wasn't it, Pam? Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. So, and then the safety committee is, we could drop that committee and just have the captain make a quarterly report to us on, because he does a pretty good job with this. But the other things, the governing and bylaws was set up because we had to change it. They haven't been changed since 1958. And
right.
Yeah. What? 56?
Yeah, they were written in 56, and then in 58 it was the statutes were passed, and the new district was formed.
And the lawyers went through that, and people in this room worked hard on that one too, getting that done. So there has been progress with committees, but it's not all that, and it's been shared during board meetings.
But the meetings of these committees haven't been noticed to the public, all of them. And that's right in our bylaws that they will be. Do we need to keep all of it?
Pam, did you have a comment?
I do. I mean, Tom, you do know that the Bylaws and Governance Committee was noticed. We never met without noticing, and you were at every meeting. The Finance Committee, Laura just did her own thing. She didn't even let me know. So, but the Bylaws and Governance always followed the rules.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that I'd like to make a motion right now in regards to the safety committee. Tom made a good point there, that quarterly meetings are being taken care of. I mean, Tom, you decided a long time ago, we had Jeff Engel on there, but at this point, Jeff Engel was the major mover of that. But as long as they're wording quarterly and they're making sure that all we need to do is make sure it's reported, they can report back to the board, and we can have Scott McCaffrey, is that the guy that's doing it at this time? Clay? It's Clay McCaffrey, right? Yeah. To come maybe once a quarter and tell us any updates on the safety. We had one about 2 months ago. So my motion is we drop a board member from being part of the safety committee at this point.
I second that motion.
So do we need to have a public discussion on that? Public comment? Yeah. Public comment, please.
What about the fact that there's no staff on
We'll get that. We'll address that.
Yeah, we'll get that. And I think what we've seen is that they've been pretty good about getting that done. And it's just been, okay, here's the piece of paper that, Jeff said, oh, this is what I had, and it's all done. So I think we can go ahead with that. Public comment on that at this point? None? Further discussion on that? So there's been a motion on the board that says that no longer will a board member be a part of the safety committee at this point, and that the safety manager will report quarterly to the board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Getting to Tom's next question.
Yeah, the finance.
I think that,
Yeah, I think we should have 3 meetings and
Laura, Brandon, and Jen, and Hayden,
Well, Jennifer has to be on.
I mean, Jennifer. but I
Yeah,
think-
pretty much that's what it has been.
Yeah.
But
They were-
we'll put them on there so that they know that they're respective of what they need to do. So, does that sound pretty good? 2 people on that? So, will that work for everybody? So you wanna make a motion on that at that point? You already did?
I make a motion that we add Jen, Hayden, and Brandon to the finance committee with Laura. Did I do that right?
And who,
Jennifer and Hayden, Brandon with Laura.
Public comment.
well,
You gotta have a second.
isn't there somebody else on that committee besides Laura?
It was Pam.
who was Pam?
And that was it?
Yeah.
I think that one of the
It's
things
also
is you can
Brandon.
always, you can
I
always,
was
you
on
know,
the legal
I-
committee before you guys.
you know, there's always been questions if 3 members of the board show up and makes the quorum. But here's my point, and I know we need to look at bylaws on that. If it's just in an information setting where nothing is going to be discussed, I think in the public's there, any board member should be able to go there because nobody's gonna make a decision at that point. But to come there and listen would not be a problem. I think that we need to consider that, but the people that are on that finance committee at this point, that's on the nomination of you and Laura, Peyton, and Jen, that is, you know, something there. But as far as if another board member shows up, it's not a quorum because it's just information at that time. Nobody's going to vote and nobody's going to do anything secretly, handily, and make a decision without full board approval. Okay, does that sound all right? The reason I'm saying that is, for example, Blue Cross and Blue Shield came there with great studies that we were talking about. And we had 2 people there and I wanted to go there just to listen, to see what was going on. And I think it's okay if a person's there to hear the information that we need to address at that time. The other example is when we had the city, Jennifer DeRay, we set Peyton there and Joshua went there and board members could have gone to the meeting too as well. But everybody's afraid that we were negotiating a contract with the city when all it was information at that point. And that's where we got into trouble with Yellowstone County News decided they had to come to the meeting and come back with it. Okay. But anyway, okay? So,
I disagree with you. I think there should be the only appointed board members at that meeting and the people that are on that so that we don't have a risk of somebody accusing us of having an announced board meeting.
but it's gonna be discussed at the board anyway.
I know, but that's why you have those people that are on that committee, Brandon, Laura, Hayden, and Jen to report back to us. We have McCaffrey to report back to us on the safety committee now, and that's part of their job is to report back, just like when we did the legal stuff, we reported back. And then the board made a decision.
Tom, what do you think?
Well, the other thing is, so what if 3 people are there? The next item is our bylaw discussion. Our bylaws clearly say this board is short 2 members, that we're supposed to have not 5, but 7. So 3 people does not make a quorum. A quorum is 4.
Peyton, can you add on that? What have they done in the past?
So our bylaws are quite clear that this is supposed to be a 6-member board, not a 4.
It's not a 4-member board, it's 5.
5.
And we tabled that until the legislature meets.
Pardon me?
How about we table that till the legislature meets and decides what they're going to do with boards? I think if we look that up in the minutes, it'd be there, because I made that motion, didn't I? Yeah, so we've already talked about that.
Well, let's just stick to the one that we need to talk about. And I think it's a good debate. I think I like what Dave's saying, but I need to see what other people are having to say at this time. Okay, public comments, please.
Well, when we did the bylaws, Jeff Weldon commented and said he thought that the committee meeting should always be noticed, even if there wasn't a quorum. Because I think your example being of the Blue Cross Blue Shield, the quality of the discussion is a lot better at a smaller group where they're presenting the whole thing and they can bring it back. So if you notice it, other board members can come, members of the public can come. And so and then you just don't have the issue. It just makes it really easy. All you have to do is get 48 hours notice. And that's something that didn't always happen, but it's not that hard to do.
What do you think, Brandon?
I think that,
Yeah. So,
just notice it.
just notice it on 48 hours, and board members can show up, just to be informed about what's going on. If I've got nothing to do, and I get a free lunch out of it, what the heck, you know what I mean? Not that I'll have lunch at it, but, you know. Yeah. Oh, the motion. Can you put the motion out there, Jeff? What do we have on there?
Hold on, I don't know if it's talking to that. Motion to drop the board members from the safety committee, and then a motion to add me, Peyton, and Brandon to the finance committee.
48, and can I add something that 48-hour notice given out on the website, so that other public can come, as well as other board members.
Sounds good.
Sound good?
I second here and there.
Okay, I guess we'll do public comment on that part. Does anybody have public comment on that? Okay. Yeah.
Can I just make, the only thing I would say is the board meetings are predictable, the committee meetings aren't. So clearly, if Peyton just continues to put the thing, a little headline on the front that says there's a finance committee on, October 27th, it just makes it more responsible.
Good. All in favor, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. What was the other part that you needed? Those are the two ones that you wanted to do on that one? Okay. Committee, district bylaws discussion? Yeah, Tom.
Well, again, our bylaws clearly say that this is supposed to be a 7-member board, I believe, with, 7-member board, and we only have 5. The bylaws clearly say that, I don't have them with me. Give me a second.
And we did table that at that point.
Yeah, we're well aware of this.
Yeah, we're aware of where we're at.
And so we tabled it, the legislature makes the decision because we could be talking about something that's to be decided.
What we're looking at right now is, according to Larry Brewster, that is the first bill that's going to go before the interim committee of the state legislature. It went through committee unanimous to make a 5-member board. And if the city or the county wants to put a person on the board, we would have to approve it. At the same time, they would be ex officio. They would not have a voting right to that. Any stipend that would be given by the county or their city appointee at that point. But the reason they're doing that is because of the fact that there are about 84 districts out there. Some are small and some are large. We're the largest of all of them. And it just makes it easier for everybody to work with 5 elected board members rather than having appointed county and city appointees, where a lot of these districts do not have them. At the same time, this is my opinion, makes us nimble. 5 members is easier to work with than 7. And then without that, as far as the county and the city appointees, really they had no influence on what they were doing out there whatsoever. They were just 2 extra random members. And matter of fact, they say, hey, whatever you do it this way. So what they want to do is make it uniform at this point. Let's make it 5. But it hasn't gone through legislature. So on that first bill that Larry Brewster is going to put in, he says they'll put it on the desk of the governor by January 31st. So at this point,
It's stable.
yeah, it's got to be stable at this point. There's no need to put somebody on. It's October, November, December, January, it's over. why put, 2 people on until we find out exactly what happens at state ledge? Okay, should we just move on? Okay, move on? Good, let's go on to the manager. We got some good stuff coming up here. But, thank you guys for everything you've done and where we're going right now with the manager's report. And you'll see that they've been quite busy.
You ready? Yep. As you can see in there, Liquid Engineering, contacted them. It's been, we're almost at the 5-year mark for our tanks. Last time they were inspected and cleaned. So in order to get on the list for next fall, I did the quote with them for all 3 tanks, inspection and cleaning for $15,585. I have not got the exact date. I'm assuming it will probably be in October next fall, a year from now when we get that, as they were filling up fast. You see the Raft House update. We did meet with them, went over more and more figures and numbers and everything. And Andrew is predicting to give me a date here. I should have it sometime next week that he wants to come down. It'll probably be a separate meeting from the board meeting. And he'll present the findings and stuff for all you. No action, just this is what he came to, and then the board can. I mean, we have a lot of things that we have to wait to see on anyway. So
Explain to the public what the Raftelis report is about.
Raftelis report is the rate study that we had done in conjunction with the new CIP because we had finished our.
You gotta use my terms. I don't CIP. Just kind of bring it down to
Capital improvements plan. We finished the last one with the Oxbow tank and the chlorination building, and so looking forward in projects in the future, things that need to get done within the district, using that in conjunction to help figure out what our rates need to be able to get what we need done. But it's also going to be reassessed at 5 years, whereas before in the past it hadn't. That way, if something comes up that is of more importance that can bump something off the list, then we can take a look at that too. And now that we're doing budgets, which this district has never done, that way we can financially plan for it. So with that, when he gets his final recommendations, then we'll have a meeting, and I'm guessing maybe furthest the second week in November, and we'll get notice of that. He'll present his findings on that, and he'll have probably 3 options, I'm guessing, and everybody can take a look at those and just kind of seeing some of the ideas from when he came to the board that you guys, suggestions you had, and us going through the numbers, and then you can decide what you want to kind of go with looking at. But we also, like I say, we have to wait to see what the city's going to do. They're starting theirs, and wherever that takes us down that wormhole. But then, ultimately in the spring, once we do know what the city is going to be, then we're going to have to make a decision on what the rates for the district should be to meet our goals as well as be able to meet the adjusted rates of the city going forward.
In other words, we're not taking face value everything that the city is telling us they want to charge us at this point. We are going to listen to what Raftelis has to tell us and use our consultants, which we paid plenty to do, to see where we're going in regards to whether the city is putting a screw through us or we're right on target with where we need to go at that point. Am I correct on that, Pete?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What about the CIP?
Yeah. Capital improvement plan.
Yeah, that's in conjunction with it. We had several items on there, and most of the biggest is one that, the number one priority, and that's the Northwest Transmission Main, going across Alexander Road, down to Glen Eagles and tying in. We need that because we're so neck down in the Lake Hills areas with various 6-inch and smaller size lines that St. Andrews is having to run to supplement what the tank's bringing down, even though the pressure is sufficient. It's just people start watering, they start bringing it down, and we don't want it to get close to where it's inhibiting the fire flow should something happen. So that's why we've kind of put a priority on that. We've started the process with the state revolving fund and looking at loans. At best, it would probably be next, not this coming summer, but the following spring, we would get started on that. The prices are just crazy on everything right now. But, we know we're gonna have to borrow for that, and that's what, is in the budget on the capital improvement for the $830,000. That's the total high engineer's estimate for engineering on that project, but, we haven't yet tapped into that yet, because we're still finishing this up.
Peyton, what do you think on Alexander Road? How many new houses are we planning in that development out there?
Well, we don't plan that, it's just,
You guys are gonna
we
do
need
that.
that regardless of what development does, just for our flows in the district, and yeah, it'll be a main feeder line. We don't plan on doing any services on it during construction. It's gonna be straight pipe work and hydrants, and we'll come straight down and tie in, and that'll alleviate our flows. We should be able to take and mothball or put on standby St. Andrews Pump Station, which has been the workhorse in that whole area since forever. And then,
As you know, yeah, Mr. Bailey.
I got a question
Yeah.
for Pete.
Yeah.
When they sanitize one of those tanks, you physically drain the tank, all the water out of the tank?
no, they want it full.
It's a full.
diver.
The diver gets decontaminated and drops down in there, yeah.
Oh, and they clean off anything that might be,
They'll first usually, they go down and they'll do a dye test and check anything they see. They document everything on video. If there's a crack, and they'll push the dye, if it moves or doesn't move, stuff like that.
I think, okay.
And then they have a vac, and they'll,
I thought maybe they drained all the water out when the harbor
No.
washer.
no, they want it as full as can be to get down in there. Yeah, it's quite the process. It's interesting.
Oh, that's the reason the guys have to be certified.
Yeah.
I forgot your first name again, sir. What was it?
Wesley.
Yeah, hey, Wes.
Thank you, man. I don't know really this process, but so I've just really got a question for you, Peyton, and the board. Bring up the water and the supply and stuff like that. It just reminded me about something. Are we still, as a Heights Water District, are we still only on one main line coming from the water plant?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So have you found out what they're going to do if that main line blows where it's leaking now down by Colton Park?
They've had leaks in the past. They had one 2 years ago.
Yes, sir.
They had several down there. They can back feed us temporarily
Okay.
for a limited time.
Long enough to make the
But
Yeah.
the reason why I ask, you know what's going to take to, if that pipe was burst, what it's going to take to get that. So I just didn't know if we had a backup plan, if the city had a backup plan to make sure we still had more than 3 days.
Yeah.
That's
It's basically when they're going to make the repair, we top off everything we have. It's always going to be in the fall or the winter when they're going to repair it, when obviously less use. And that's the way we did it last time.
I'm sorry, Peyton, but my question is, what's going to happen if that pipe burst? Right now it's leaking.
Then we're going to
Do
go.
y'all know about it leaking right now?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So what's going to happen if that sucker blows?
Well, they're going to have to fix it. PDQ, because you only got a limited supply of water.
We got 3 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Just know y'all know that, and I just wanted to
No, that's
just ask that question.
Yeah, and I don't, Wes, we just got done settling with the city.
Oh, I didn't.
2.92 million.
I'm up on that a little bit, Ming, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that main line that comes out of the city plant.
Yeah, that's it.
And if it blows, then how long do we have?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 3 days.
okay, 3 days. Thank you, Ming.
Tops.
It's not just this district that gets water through that line. It's all of the Heights. There is only one source, and this district does not serve, you can see the map. They don't service
All the height.
all of the
I know the city
Heights,
has half
so,
of it.
It's a serious situation. You're quite right, and there is no loop for it to come from another direction. There's just one line coming out here for us and the non-water district users.
That would be zone 2 at Blythe Creek up to Skyview, right? High school, and they have a tank up there too, the city.
We got that one take out there at Oxbow that'll help a little bit
Yeah.
down, so, but.
Thank you, Peyton.
Anything else, Peyton?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, keep going, Peyton, where we're at.
Wait a minute, before you leave the CIP, where are we at with the completion of the CIP? Giving it back? How much longer before we get?
That's going to be, the CIP portion of it will be presented in November. That part
November?
is good, it's just the rates, you're not really, you kinda have to wait on, and you guys can mull over, and same with if you wanna act on the CIP or remove stuff, you can do that at one of the meetings, that's fine as well, we can discuss all that, but the rates is what we'll have to hold off on, but you'll get all that information at the meeting. Cause there's some projects on there, just like the tentative one that, aren't really fiscally necessary, tying some of these lines in together that maybe you have a 2-block gap in, but yet there's no customers on it, or no customers that have ever wanted to be on it to have the main get extended through. So, why should the district go out and spend $500,000 to extend a 12-inch water main crossing 2 blocks when there's not even any customers on it, or any potentially developers, coming in or asking about it, stuff like that. So there's just a few items on it, and we'll go over all that when it comes in.
Keep going.
I got Derek Weiss, our newest serviceman. He's going to be sent to Bozeman here next week. So he will be at the fall water school, and we'll have basically 2.5 days of test prep, what they do up there with the classes, and then he'll take his exam to be a certified operator on the last day there and come back. Hopefully he gets it done. He seems to be pretty prepared. I know some of the guys have gone through some of the stuff with him to help him get, any questions that he might have. So hopefully we get her done on a one-time on that. So I wanted to clarify just one thing on engineering, because it's been a question. Anytime we have a master agreement with Interstate Engineering, I don't sit there and sign things that just come in, oh yeah, we're doing this. On the day-to-day operations, such as GIS updates or the hydraulic modeling that we require, stuff like that, yeah, I sign those. But any project that the district is going to do is always going to come with a task order, just like the CIP was task order 27. The chlorination station was task order 26. And that's always presented to the board before it's signed. And it's usually going to be something the board's already known about or coming up on, just like when we get eventually to the Northwest Transmission Main, it's going to be in a task order. The engineering for it is going to be in a task order. And that's going to be signed by me, but it'll be approved by the board. So I just wanted to clarify that it's not, I'm not just whipping signatures out on that. The other thing that Jen and I are looking at some of the stuff, I just want to have you guys put in the back of your minds, getting rid of the deposit requirement and setting up an account.
What account do we have to deposit?
When you set up water service, it's a $45 deposit. It's been around, our bad debt is very, very low. Most of the other places, Northwest Energy, any companies don't even require one, and it's kind of a nightmare to bookkeep because we have checks back and forth when people discontinue service or move. If they don't move within the district but move out of the district, then it's a refund check of their deposit. I just wanted to put the bug in your ear of maybe thinking, and if we want to send them, a mail or put it on an October bill or something, that we would like to credit everybody's bill back with their deposit that they have, so we can clean that slate and just go forward. There's a lot of people signing up online now on the website. It's a lot easier when we don't have that requirement. Sometimes we're hanging cards on their door telling them, hey, you need to come and pay your deposit, even though they've already signed up for service and they think it's done, they didn't pay, and so you get that deposit. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is that a separate, that comes out of, that's a separate account for the whole thing, isn't it?
Well, it's a separate entity on the account itself, but it's a part of the growth account, which is not our main account.
When did
Also
we
where the
start?
checks are coming out of.
When did we start requiring deposits?
That's been around since, God, even before Diane. I think they initially started that in the 70s. The last time I ever saw anything on it, I could try to go up to the archives and try to figure it out. Obviously, it wasn't the same price, but over the years, and I don't know if it was simply because when they were installing the services on their own in the district, they wanted to get something before they started work on that from the person, or what the deal was. And I know a lot of places back in the day, you used to have to put down, a deposit for service, but in these day and age, it's kind of not really necessary.
I have a question on, let's say you've got somebody that lives in an apartment and might be only there for 6 months. Would that be something, for example, I have apartments in Glendyke, okay? The water department requires those apartments to put up a $175 deposit because they skipped out. That's the problem they have.
Right,
So-
and we haven't seen that, and most of the time, I mean, we do have the landlord agreements, a lot of landlords.
Then the landlord has to pay it.
Right, but most of the time, the landlords make the tenants go and sign up for the water, so they're not on the hook for it. And
And
that's
they
why,
require a deposit.
right,
Okay,
I
see,
mean,
that's the only
if-
ones that I worry about.
if we saw a trend, but, I talked to Susie again this morning, and we really don't have an issue with that, and it's kind of one of those things that's
What's our deposit rate right now?
$45.
$5.
What's the total dollars that would be? How many residents have that?
What'd you figure it was, 200?
250.
Wow. Okay, any other discussion on that, guys?
Just, we can put it on a future agenda, that's what I figured would probably be the easiest, it just depend if you wanted to notify people, we could do a card sent out to every resident, let them know, and put it on a bill, whatever, saying, hey, you're gonna notice this on your December bill, that you're gonna have a credit, this is from your deposit that the district is no longer requiring, and go from there and get it off our heels of constantly writing checks back to people, there's a lot of people moving in and out, and it's just,
So how do we collect if somebody doesn't pay and they move out?
we send it to collections. Usually, a lot of times, the rare few times, it's, if they move out and they don't, get a hold of us or forwarding, then it's used to pay their final bill, or what's left of it, or the remainder.
It doesn't always cover
Hmm?
it. It doesn't always cover
Yeah.
it.
So collection is doing a good job for us getting the money back.
Yeah, we don't have a big bad debt issue, we don't send a lot to collections, so it's,
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
We don't have a problem with people not paying their water bill and moving out or anything like that. We don't have, $45, some people's water bill is extremely higher than that in 1 month.
right.
Mine isn't because I don't use any water outside the house, so I'm trying to understand if it's gonna hurt us in any way not to have a deposit. If it's only $45, I don't believe I have ever paid a deposit to the Heights Water.
You did when you signed up.
I don't think so. I don't
I
think
didn't either.
so. I don't believe you ever.
I'll dig your file up tomorrow and find out. You can see if the receipt's in there.
Can we put this on the agenda for next?
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
I just want to discuss it at this point and see where we're going,
But it is,
and then,
we don't have, the deposit is not gonna cover somebody who won't pay the bill and skip.
I asked that question about how they collect, and they say our collection agency does a good job. Turn in more collections.
On the rare times that we do, yeah.
Got any,
yeah, public, yeah.
I got past experience with that. I had a renter that run up a $500 water
There you
bill.
go, absolutely.
And guess what? The poor soul died on me.
Oh,
I paid the water bill.
see? That's what I've
There you
done
go.
many a times.
It didn't go any farther than that. I just I paid the water bill.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, and Glenda was $175 deposit, and they don't even get their money's worth. So they
Same
go
thing
back
with
after
Rockwood.
we- Yeah,
I had a rental on Rockwood.
Yeah.
And, one of my renters skipped, but left the water running in the backyard
Yep.
until I got over there. And I had a $1,500 bill by the time I was done.
Thank you.
So their little $45 or $35 deposit that they took didn't cover
No.
that.
No.
Especially you got trailers. Trailers are notorious for that. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Well, one of the advantages that I see is, one, we've had our checking information stolen, and so for every check that goes out, you've got the routing number and the account number on it. So just eliminating all those checks eliminates a lot of information going out that isn't necessary. Also, the bank charges us for every check that we write. So we're not, we we've just heard testimony that we're not losing any money, essentially, and we would save money. Now, the check writing isn't awfully high, but those are the checks we pay for. And there's a lot of them, and not to mention that it's really essentially, I think, a waste of Jim's time to write that many checks.
So what do you wanna do on this thing, guys? What do you think we should do? You wanna, yeah, let's put it on the agenda for next, put it on the agenda for next, good discussion though, I think we needed to have it there. Thank you, guys. You know what I've had to deal with, so, appreciate it. Okay, anything else, Peyton?
The last thing I have on there is, that I had in there was, I got that bill for street opening permits that I never applied for. And then I got another bill for the unpaid balance, and I had sent the letter to them. I thought this had been taken care of months ago, even when Larry was interim manager. He had went down there and discussed this with them, and I talked to Mac Vogelsong. I'm still waiting to hear back from him, so I just want to, because he was not, obviously he came from Sanderson Stewart. I don't think he's really up on governmental stuff like that, so he's going to get back to me, and so we'll just see where it goes. But I just want to make you aware.
So,
other than that,
did you pay that bill they sent?
No.
Because we are a governmental entity. Larry Brewster had the same questions. I talked to Larry too as well at a meeting today. He says, yeah, they should have eliminated that a long time ago. And we'll just not argue with it at that point. Let's go on. There's nothing else to talk about on it, really, at this point. Because as a governmental entity, they cannot, if we're non-governmental, they can charge us. But since we're a governmental, we get a bypass on some of those costs that they have there at that point. Do we need a public comment on this? Yeah.
I did send the memo that the legal committee had, and Brandon had it too, and he was on the legal committee, that came from Debbie Melling in April 20th of 2020, that lays out a lot more of the law. I mean, the bottom line is when you open the road, somebody's got to pay for it. And I don't see any reason why the rest of our neighbors would pay for it if it was open for our purpose, to do something that we needed. I mean, Larry didn't actually discuss it. It came up in the legal committee when we were negotiating with the city. It didn't seem like it was such a little amount of money. It didn't seem to justify hiring an attorney. But basically, they've laid it out, and they laid it out in April 20th of 2020, and we paid it for 2 years after that, and we paid it for years before that. So you're going to walk yourself into another legal mess if you just refuse to pay bills.
Did we pay that ever?
The only reason they did is because it was tacked onto the countersuit.
That's right.
And like I say, the biggest problem is what they've quoted in that letter had nothing to do with, one can't. It's just like when they do engineering projects, SIDs or whatever, that come from the city that they have third-party engineers. We review them. We don't charge them the plan review fee. It's a governmental. As a matter of fact, in their own city code, under that section, the reason for the street opening permit is to recover the burden imposed on taxpayers by occupation of the public rights of way by non-governmental entities. That is in your own city code. And if you look at Missoula, you look at Bozeman, everywhere in theirs it says the same thing.
So then why do they keep billing us for that, Pete?
Because the district has always just paid. They never wanted to push back. It's just a
What do you think, Tom?
All I did was put it out there. I don't have a problem filling out the permits, but you can't charge for it. I'll let you know where we're at. I have no problem with that whatsoever. We never did. But you can't bill us for it, and you know it.
How much do they charge us for it?
About $345 per 10 by 10, I think, or something like that. Yeah, it's 400-ish per dig.
To work on our own utilities.
We don't pay that.
Yeah, it's really expensive. But have they charged us for every time?
Yep.
Because you just had a couple in the
report. Because like I said.
But I know of a whole lot more.
Oh yeah, I have not put in a permit since I've been manager.
So, if everything we've done were to be charged at these rates,
Could be a
we would be delinquent for a sizable amount of money. Is that a true statement? Because we haven't had that permit. We haven't been paying that for
I
quite a
haven't filled
few
it from that, no.
repairs, correct?
But not all repairs are in the right of way either.
No,
So,
but there's a
the
lot.
majority of them are in the curb stops, which are in the,
As I see it, it's another way for them to charge us. It was up on Mecca City Water, and they had to dig up the road. They wouldn't send the water department there a bill. It's another way of charging us. I mean, we have already paid for those streets, maintenance of those streets, and all the other things we do with our city taxes. No, I see no.
I agree with everything you said.
the only other thing that I considered possibly is if you guys wanted, soliciting an attorney general opinion, because, you can, it's of no cost to a governmental entity. You can submit it in writing and he can answer it, and then it's.
Somebody has to carry it on the state lunchtime and make it move.
Well, it's kind of they can, it's really a no-brainer though. I mean, governmental entities, there's really no point unless usually you have an interlocal agreement on something and both parties pay their own costs.
So Peyton, are you gonna try then, this done?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to work, Matt didn't call, I was hoping he would call me back so I could have something different to report, but, I haven't heard from him yet. But if I don't on Friday, I'll give him a call and see. I mean, I'd like to resolve it between ourselves and just say, hey, we'll fill out the form, charge, and.
So
We'll put that on the manager's report for next month and see where we go.
and maybe we can get the Attorney General's opinion on it.
One big problem I have in not paying it is they're gonna tack on a bunch of the fees are already exorbitant. Are they gonna tack on a bunch of late fees without any discussion? Do they have that right? If you haven't paid this bill that we just got, which is exorbitant for what
I
you
didn't fill
want.
out those permits either.
Pardon me?
I didn't fill out those permits.
I understand.
So you're billing me where you just making up my permits off of a locate that you got off of a, what?
How are they finding this that we didn't ask for this and didn't pay them? And these are expensive. I mean, you just dug up Wicks Lane down on the east side of Bitterroot this week. I bet you that wasn't part of it. And the repair was done in 2 days, one day doing the actual work, and the next day there was an asphalt company patching the patch. And they're gonna charge us a few $100s for digging in the street. It's kind of exorbitant. But if there's gonna be a super late fee, are we better off to pay the bills as they come in and fight?
Here's the question then. Is there a late fee on that?
Not that I think. No.
Okay. There hasn't been one on that.
All right.
Okay. So that they have to put there whether there's a late fee involved at this point. So let's go move on and put that on the manager's report for next month. See what you find out on that at that time, Dave.
Yep. Thank you, Dave.
We need to go on. Let's go on.
Maybe
Okay.
can I clarify, just on the Attorney General opinion, you can't just write him and get him to act on an opinion. I mean, it's not
You can
out.
request.
You can request it, but what his answer is, because we've made that request, is that first you have to show evidence that you've made an effort to resolve it at the local level, and he's got to have an analysis from somebody locally that's legal. So I mean, because an Attorney General's opinion has the force of law, so he's not going to just act on it without some background.
That's what we're trying to get to. Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely. Before we go to the Attorney General, we've got a little bit of, we got a week here or two to find out exactly, is it Deb Mailing or the other guy you said?
Matt Folsom.
Yeah, Matt. Get back to him and find out what we're. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question for Peyton, if I could. The doors and stuff for this chlorination project, you showed us pictures that aren't there yet. Are they there now so that we don't have a freeze-up problem or anything? We haven't had any frosts or freezes yet this year that's gonna damage anything.
No.
Curious, make sure we're getting this stuff done, building and closed before we.
Oh yeah, they had temporary doors on there anyway, and they switched them out.
If you haven't been there for some, you should go. It's a nice place.
Yeah.
Bring Josh with you. He'll buy you a beer.
That's some of the supplies that you're waiting on.
Not during business hours.
Times.
All right, let's move on. Laura's, as to, she had a death in the family. So I believe, Peyton, you've got the treasurer's report there. She sent it.
She did not send it to me.
Oh, okay. I thought she got it to you.
I know one of the only things, and that was what we were waiting on, was she wanted to, we had the 3 investments.
Yes.
They came due, and she wanted to invest those, and I had, when she talked about it, I just asked her to hold off so that I could make sure that the last water bill that we were covered on that, and we were. So we have no big expenditures or good in the money, so I think it was just fine to invest those with the steeple CDs that she had of the 4% and whatever it was, 6.9, what we got here. 246,838.68 at 4.35, 250,000 at 4.7%, and 4.5% for 185,000 to invest those.
But those, the other 2 are not maturing until next year, is that correct? The only one we've got is 1, is that right, Peyton?
3 year.
How long is time frame is this?
36.
They're all 3 year.
36
3
months.
years?
Mm-hmm.
When did you get that quoted at?
Yeah.
I'll go back to this tonight, or when we table this till she gets back.
No, we got one we have to do.
Yeah, and it's just we'll have another one coming due in November, and that's why I included the investments in there. And like I said before, it was usually, you knew it was coming up, mention it to the board, invest it or not. That's 202,624. That'll mature on November 21st for this fiscal year. And then we just have one in January, and then the 2 in February, and then we're into the next fiscal year before I start mature again.
And just, I guess the question is, because of this, let's go ahead and make a motion first. I make a motion that we consider reinvesting the one for November and the other ones later on. At this point, the 202,624, which is due 11/21.
I second that motion.
Okay, now we can have discussion on that. The number on that yield is pretty darn good, 6.3%. Is that right, Peyton, on that? That's what I'm seeing on that at this point.
4.7 and 4.5.
Oh, 4.7, 4.5 on those 2 legal entities.
Mm-hmm.
And your motion is to only do what?
Just the one in November.
Just in November.
Yeah, just wait till January and February when we get a report on that at this point. Because this
So
one's
we
due
have
next
the other
month.
3
There's 3 of them on there.
Oh, yeah.
before that. Those
That's
ones
the one
that
coming
have the
up.
4.7.
Well,
Those
ones
came
that are
due in
due
September.
These are due right here.
Yeah, those ones are due, and then you have
This
the
is-
November coming.
The 682,000 worth is these.
Those are the ones she talked about. I said to wait because, like I said, I want to make sure all the accounts are good after we pay the high bill.
The big high bill.
The last
Okay.
summer bill to the city.
From this, we weren't sure where we're gonna.
Well, I know it was going to be 400 or something,
Yeah.
460,000 or whatever it was, so, and we are good, so we don't have any big needs for cash right now, so we can invest those. Do you want to?
Yeah. We'll go with public comments in just a second.
Oh, no, we have to make an amendment that would include all 3.
Okay, I would like to make amendment. I made the wrong one.
Why don't you remove your motion?
I removed my motion.
Move to second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's move this one again. Let's move, somebody want to make a motion on this one then?
Are you wanting to?
Yeah, go ahead. I want to
So
approve it.
make that motion.
Okay. Anybody second it?
Second.
Okay, now we're gonna have a discussion on these 3.
So now we're doing 3.
The
Yeah.
3, we'll get right to your public comments in just a second. You want the board to talk about it first, or what do you want? You want to comment?
I think you should.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Chair. Go
I
ahead.
just got a question. Peyton, you said that those investments were 3 years?
Mm-hmm, correct.
Did they have to be 3 years?
No, usually I've seen 2 and 4 and 5.
I guess my point is with what's going on in the world right now, with interest rates, at this point in time, maybe the guys should shorten that to maybe a year.
Well, sometimes you get a lower rate with that when you go to the year, but at this point, these are some of the better rates that we've seen. I mean, over the last few years, it was terrible, terrible rates.
Yeah.
Like 1.85, you know, just.
And that's where the year is at, is right around that number. And the 2 year was like a 3 something.
3.35.
And then the 3 year was this, according to Stiefel. So he said he didn't think the rates were going to jump anymore like they thought. They thought the feds would be done for quite some time. This is his advice.
These are, again, these are money that's going out, capital, not money that's going loaning. Yeah.
I don't know who you're investing with, but I just got a sizable amount of money for 1 year at 4.5.
Okay.
And you might think that you're going to get maybe 5.5 because the investor that you just talked to said that it's not going to go up, while the feds were on the phone this morning saying that 0.75% increase 3 times.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So you're looking
14.
at that's 1.5. That's 2.5% interest increase on top of that you're going to be losing out if you go 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of time you're limited on what you can actually go to at what bank because you already have money in it, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know your situation, but that's why I asked you who you were going through, because the factor is that I'm going through an investor, and I'm getting the top rate.
We're kind of regulated by government entities as to how and what we can.
Right.
Can we do at this point. We've got to be very considerate.
Just one, yeah, just a question.
That's good.
Negotiate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna second what Mr. Mackey said. You're certainly not limited to who you invest with in a CD. And I agree, I don't think that the rates from Stiefel have ever been very competitive. So I think they're giving you sound financial advice.
Any other comments? Okay, let's call for
These
the
are
vote.
2 year?
3 years.
3 years.
Well, we have to do something by November. That's the problem. We need to move on this. Say it out loud, Pete.
We're just wondering where you.
Well, the coupon maturity is 4.35. You know, I'm lucky to get 5.5 in anything in the stock market right now. And I know what they're saying with what they're doing on the private investors. But I'm telling you, we get caught with that sucker and we go down 3.3 on some of those things.
You can't go down on a CD.
Okay, thank you. All right.
That's true.
Yeah, once we're locked in, but at this point, what do? Put the money in a reserve account and move it on? You know what I'm talking about? We gotta decide what to do with it now. You can't just say, hey, listen, we're gonna go with a different CD company at this point.
No.
We're limited at this point with people. Okay. I guess I'm gonna call a vote on this to see where we're at. I'm gonna make a motion that we did have a motion on this.
Yes, we did.
So, all in favor of just reinvesting this with Stiefel at this point, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Oh, boy.
Motion carries unanimous on the Okay, Blue Cross Blue Shield renewal review. Tom, you were at the meeting. Peyton, you were in the meeting. What happened?
Basically had the same increases we had last year. It's gonna go up 5%. We were gonna defer and wait to, you guys decide on November, because we wanted to make sure, even though they told us Guardian, dental and vision were not changing at all, but we still wanted to wait until we got those actually to make sure. But no benefits changed. It was merely just the amounts for your age that they jacked up in every category. And but all in all, it wasn't too bad.
So on this Blue Cross Blue Shield, you can go to either hospital. Is that correct on this one, Peyton?
It's the same plan that we've had,
Yeah.
same deductibles, same everything. They just increased it for the amounts for your age group.
And then we don't have that many age because Diane left and Duke left.
It was kind of a wash,
Yeah, washed it out in terms of our 5%.
even with.
Tom, what else did you find out from the meeting? What did you think? I think we're not gonna vote on this right now.
No,
That's just information at this point.
Says action be taken in November.
Yeah.
The rate's less than inflation. The increase is quite a little less than inflation is right now. So how can you really argue that?
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's move on then at that point. Okay. He came about 2 months ago. He came during the summer. Yeah, he was here. Steve was here. Yeah, you missed that meeting. So, okay, let's go back to the old business. We were talking about legal invoices. Is that correct? We're going to the consent agenda. Tom wanted to lead off.
Well, last month we tabled the invoices from Hendrickson Law and from Susan Swindler. I don't have a problem with Hendrickson Law. The only thing that happened there is failure to communicate. To get the insurance to pay the legal bills requires a settlement. Law just requires you drop it. So everybody had thought the suit was dropped, except Hendrickson Law kept working to get a settlement so insurance could reimburse us. It looks to me like we paid more for trying to get the insurance to pay than we paid on the suit. And it's just a lack of communication.
The problem, I'm just going to bring it up. The problem was you didn't get the information from your attorney. And that was the problem last month, is because of the fact that you were the holdout. And finally,
nobody had signed a settlement. Not me, not Dennis, not Jeff. None of them had signed needed a settlement for the insurance.
Brandon sent one, and Dennis. Yeah, and you just didn't get the.
Nobody came to me and asked for my.
Well, I know, that's what the problem was. And then this month, on the Hendrickson Law. Yeah.
All we're waiting on was a settlement.
Yeah. And then this month.
Which isn't required legally, it's required for the insurance.
And then this month was the dismissal of that, and final, push by the insurance to get that done. So Hendrickson Law, that should be the last of that lawsuit at this point. Hopefully. And I did talk to Stark about it. I said, that's it, isn't it? He said, yep.
I did too.
Oh, you did? Thank you, Brent. Okay, so we should be done. Okay.
No.
And last but not least,
Susan Swimley. Susan Swimley has not been hired by the board. Our bylaws are clear. We've got to do things with a vote. There has never been Susan Swimley hired by the board.
Will you answer that for me, please?
So, how do we pay an invoice for somebody who wasn't hired?
Here's my
We're supposed to have a resolution.
Here's my take on this.
We have a resolution hiring Susan Swimley.
Well, Susan Swinley was hired before, okay? But the take was the fact that the county attorney called me 3 days before our meeting and told me that Pam Ellis needs to be on the board. And we said, no, we have a lack of confidence in her. She's not on the board. And they told me, the county as well as, what's his name?
Scott Twido.
Twido says, I won't talk to you, Ming. You need to hire an attorney. Said, you have no jurisdiction over this, so keep quiet and see what we need to do. Well, the board has made that vote already in terms of what we had to do, and we had to move on quickly. Now that's where we need to change our bylaws. We were talking about bylaws. That was put on by Pam herself to put that the attorneys are to be hired by the board. And I believe that should be taken off immediately because it does not make us nimble.
Still, our bylaws clearly say the board hires the attorney.
Well, then we made a mistake.
We never have a board meeting hiring Susan Swimley.
We'll talk about this something in the future that we put on here to talk about, so I don't think there's anything we can really do at this moment.
It was paid.
Paying this bill, in my opinion, both of these bills, is a violation of our whole entity. I mean, if we don't have board approval to hire Susan Swimley.
Hendrickson Law We had board approval on
You
this. Okay,
did.
so that one's done.
Yeah,
Now, the
well,
question is in regards to what we had to do with Swinley, we had 24 to 48 hours to make a move to make that happen. That's where the nimbleness of where we need to do. Now, in the past, I'm not saying under Peyton's management, that was part of the district manager's job to go, if it was needed, to hire an attorney to make things happen, okay, to do that at that point. So that's where it's up to the manager to make that decision at that point, too, at the same time. Frank, you had your hand up, please.
Yeah, I just got a question that lawsuit that the 3 row board members and the 1 customer brought, who's paying that?
We had the insurance pay it at this point.
So the customers aren't paying it?
Hey, what's lawsuit?
The lawsuit went to insurance. Insurance is paying it. Our insurance company is paying that lawsuit for our attorneys on that.
Okay, so then this new one, it's 48 hours notice for a meeting, so what would have stopped you to have a meeting, a board emergency meeting to follow the bylaws? To put Sergeant Swimley in on that. I can't see anything that's that big of a rush that you bypass the bylaws because you only need 48 hours notice.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions on that at this point?
Like Frank said, 40, you just said, you had 3
Well,
days.
we heard it.
Yeah, we heard it. We heard it. And as far as that goes, we had to move with an attorney at that point. And that's why. I'm not gonna elaborate anymore. Hold on. We need to finish this off. Okay. So whether we don't like it or not, we need to consider.
But she wasn't hired legally. We've never, as a board, hired her. We've never even had public comment on whether or not to hire an attorney. How do you hire an attorney when our bylaws clearly say it's the board's responsibility to hire Peyton, a secretary, and attorneys? It's right in the bylaws.
She did work for us, so therefore.
But she was fired, so the old
Services need to be
agreement was
paid.
terminated.
Ming hired her, services were done.
We were-
She needs to be paid for.
we
We
actually-
can look into the bylaws and maybe make some adjustments.
I did not make that decision on my own.
No.
I talked to you about it, I talked to Dave, I talked to Laura, I talked to Peyton, and that was on the board at that point period of time, because of time was of a constraint at that time, and still is, essential to what we need to do to move forward, and what we got at that point.
She's contacted, she's done services, she needs to be paid.
Yep.
We need to adjust some things maybe here, maybe something was done obviously wrong in your eyes. That's something we can chat about and put it on here and get it in. Make sure and follow it, just like the 48 hour, like you said, that should have probably been followed.
Yeah.
Okay, we can admit our wrongs, if we did something wrong as a board, and let's just move past that and not make the same mistake twice. If that's what you wanna call it.
Okay?
You have some comments?
I don't wanna do any more. Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
I feel like I was singled out, but I'm new here, but just what I'm hearing, Tom, you make sense. If it's black and white, it's black and white. We need to stop passing the buck here. I don't care who made a fault. Somebody needs to be held accountable. That's the world we live in. That's why I'm going down to the city council for the past 3 months. We all need to be held accountable for our mistakes. So what if Tom is saying is correct? I agree 100% with him. Whoever made that hire of an attorney, without the board's vote on it, needs to be held accountable.
Well, the
That's
board has
all
to
I
vote in
have.
the public to hire an attorney.
We get that.
Well,
We got
same thing.
We got it.
Because we elect
We
you.
got it. We got it.
We elect you.
We
That's all.
got it.
Yeah, we got it.
We understand that. However, the situation that we had was beyond repair at that point. Okay? And that's why we had to go forward and have a total restraining order against somebody when you had 12 board members that have wanted her off of this board out of 13. For 2 years.
That's
Okay.
not where I'm.
I know.
This is my first time here. I just heard what Tom had said.
I know, but the point is, at this point, we're gonna move past it at this time, and we will, what do you wanna do with this
Put
then?
that on the agenda for next
Can,
week.
can I be recognized?
Recognize her. You go ahead.
Yeah. The one thing that I would say is Evelyn asked at a meeting who hired, how the meeting was held to hire Susan, and you said Peyton had the authority to hire and he hired her. Tonight, you just acknowledged that you hired her, but you talked to every other board member, which means that's a serial board meeting. That's a serial board meeting and a clear violation of Montana open meeting laws. So.
All we did was I asked where we needed to go. I did ask Peyton to go move forward and see what he wanted to do on this at that point, to move what they've done in the past, and hired the attorney to move forward to get this done. Is that right, Peyton?
That's correct. To me, it was day-to-day operation.
Yep.
That's what it all got.
Day-to-day operations hires an attorney
Are you?
and can encumber this board for hundreds of thousands of
Well,
dollars. When last spring, the lawnmower
hundreds of
broke down.
thousands, tried over almost $100,000 because
The last spring, the lawnmower broke down, and you came to this board, I believe it was in May, to get authority to buy a lawnmower. Well, that's nothing compared to hiring a lawyer. Where did you get the authority on your day-to-day operations
It's been done in the
to
past.
spend that much money? Our bylaws clearly say
That was
the
added-
board hires.
that was
This
added-
body accepted the bylaws.
that was added under Pam's direction. to
You
put that-
voted for it.
Okay, you're right, I did vote for it. But we found out we cannot be nimble to try to run a board without moving on a day-to-day operation. And that's my opinion, to do a day-to-day operation to make that
At
happen.
least 2 meetings prior to this, I'll bring it up.
Okay, hold on. Okay. We're not gonna do anything by doing anything.
The only time I have ever seen in 15 years here, the board hire an attorney was when you guys did for the lawsuit. And the last board and all the boards before it was only when we decided to countersue the city of Billings and retain Randy Nelson. That's the only time that the board has ever had to vote to hire an attorney. Before that, it was Duke calling board president, have this issue, I need to consult legal, or having this issue, I need to talk to a lawyer on, depending on whatever it was, whether it was some land issue, contact an attorney that specialized in that, and went from there. So, past precedents aside, tell what you want. But, yeah, those need to be changed. There's a lot of things in there that need to be changed.
So you understand is when Mean called me, he didn't say vote for a lawyer. He informed me of what he and Peyton were doing, give us information, so I knew if somebody asked me. I didn't say go hire a lawyer or anything. It was, we were informed of what was going on. Same to you. I made a motion we approve.
Which means that Ming violated the law, because he has no authority to.
Oh, so what do you wanna do with me, Pam? What's your point? What's your point?
We got a motion on the floor to adjourn.
I second the motion.
What are you doing with the legal bills from?
We're gonna table it until November. We already made that.
You got a new one from this month's meeting. What are you doing with that?
Well, that one has to be paid because that was part of the old Hendrickson Lawford.
We're paying a bill that we never hired someone to submit a bill.
Oh, okay. All in favor of dismissing the meeting at this point? Adjourning, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
No.
Motion carries.
3 to 1.